Hello?
Hey,
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is Jibril Osman. I run the platform Studio One, where I interview international artists like yourself and local artists in Toronto. So it's a pleasure to get you on the platform. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm really good. Just before we start, can you just briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is ZOLA. I'm an artist, musician based out of San Francisco. Yeah, singer-songwriter.
Cool. So to start, I know you grew up in a French household. So I just want to know what that was like and how that kind of developed the way you were as a person early in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So my mom is from France, born and raised. And my dad is from South Africa. So my mom spoke French and my dad spoke English. And I have an older sister, 4 years older. And she put my sister and I in a French immersion school here in San Francisco, starting in kindergarten. And I was there all the way up until high school. And so I learned everything in French. I did also have English classes, but everything else was in French. And I only spoke French at home with my mom. So yeah, I definitely consider myself a bit more European than American, just culture wise.
Yeah.
That's just where I grew up, and my dad not being American either. Definitely feel more European. And going to a French school, it was mainly, French people from France actually, at my school. So definitely way different than going to, an American public school here in San Francisco. But yeah, it was definitely a different upbringing than I'm sure most people had, and definitely a big culture shock when I went to college. So I went to school at the University of Miami in Florida. So it was definitely very strange for me my first year.
And since you were, not to cut you off, since you were in a French household, the music that you were introduced to when you were early on, were there French music that you were listening to, or how was your first introduction to music?
My mom listened to a couple of French artists, but honestly, they mostly listened to a lot of 80s music. So that's mostly what I grew up on. And my dad introduced me to a couple South African artists. The one that stuck out the most was Black Lady Mambazo. Listened to a lot of that growing up, but mostly 80s music is what they listened to. So I grew up listening to a lot of that. Joy Division, like on your t-shirt.
Yeah.
Depeche Mode. Some of my mom's favorite artists are actually not French at all. They're David Bowie and Prince and Bjork. Those are like probably her three top ones. So that's mostly the music I listened to growing up.
And I know when it comes to music, for a lot of people it becomes some like a hobby. Like you really enjoy it, you start liking it. Do you remember when you started to realize that music wasn't kind of like a hobby and like you really wanted to pursue it? Do you know I guess around the age, or how did you figure that?
Right before going to college, because I went to college for music. I studied music business and songwriting. So definitely like probably the summer before going to college, I was like, well, I'm going to be majoring in music for the next 4 years. So I guess that's what I'm going to do after I graduate. And also I just didn't really see myself doing anything else, because it's what I love to do and it's how I express myself. And yeah, I don't really love anything as much as I love writing and singing.
That's really unique too, because a lot of artists will go to school for other professions, and then around that time they'll be working on their music on the side, and it becomes hard to balance both worlds. So how was it actually going to school for music? I'm sure that must have been amazing to have like the thing that you're studying, this thing you really want to do.
Yeah, it was awesome. I would say that definitely what I took out of it were the connections and the network that I made. Teaching how to be an artist and teaching how to do it in the real life isn't something that you learn in school. It's something that you learn by doing it. But obviously there's things, I took classes like copyright and publishing and kind of like the fundamentals and the legal side of it. I'm glad I went to school for that because I feel like I have a lot of knowledge in it, and I have knowledge in things that, you know, a lot of artists can get screwed over by on like the legal side of things.
Yeah.
But going to school for it, you know, it's the network that you build, and it's the people that you meet, it's the other musicians that you meet, and it's the collaborating with other people. But definitely the real world of it is you learn it when you're finally in it. So that's kind of what I've been learning the past 2 years since I graduated.
Yeah. And a large part too of that when you're pursuing music is the support system. How was your family when you let them know that music really was something that you were pursuing? How was the support from them?
110% supportive. They come to all my shows. They help me sell my merch. My mom is definitely my number one fan and supporter. She will like sell my merch out the back of her car, like after my shows. And I mean, she shares everything on her social media. She's probably more active on social media than I am, honestly. But no, they're the best supporters, and having support makes all the difference for sure.
Yeah. And when you left school, is that when you started releasing records? And if so, how were the early records like when you were really like putting yourself out there?
Yeah, I actually released an EP when I was, I had graduated. So the EP that I put out is called Everything I Know. It's the first project I put out. I had written all of it in college, but I eventually put it out like at the end of the summer after I graduated. Put it out completely independently. And I mean, I had never released anything before except for on SoundCloud. I'd never released on Spotify or Apple Music or anything like that. So it was definitely a little scary. You don't know how it's going to go, if anything is going to come of it. But honestly, I got all the luck in the world with my first single that I put out, Too Fast, Too Soon. I guess people just really loved it and gravitated towards it. And, that song is honestly my lucky charm, and it set me on a right path, and kind of with a good foundation in the social media world and the streaming world. And then I released one single after that, and then put out my full EP. And you can only ask for so much when you're putting out something independently and you're doing everything yourself. But honestly, it turned out better than I thought it would.
Yeah.
And yeah, you kind of just gotta trust that your music is good, and if you love it, then honestly that's enough. And if you're honest about it, then people will gravitate towards that, I think.
And when it comes to releasing music, for a lot of artists, there's kind of like this, like you can have so much songs, and you kind of get afraid to release records. Early on, were you afraid of like how the reception would be, or would you just be like, I'm just gonna release these records and hope for the best? How was your mind state early on with just releasing records?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely very nervous, not sure if people would like it. And that's honestly always in the back of my head, if people are going to love my music, or if people are going to want to listen to it and are going to want to listen to it again. But you kind of got to get over that, because that can be a really big mental block. And it's definitely a mental block for me that comes and goes. But I think if you love what you do enough and you're doing it for the right reasons, then that'll come through. And you just got to know that you're doing this because you love writing music and because you love being an artist, not because, you want a certain number of streams or you want to get a certain popularity, or however you want to call it. Yeah. So if you love what you're doing, I think that's the most important.
Yeah. And for me, I'm 25, and I think I read that you were 23. So I think it's interesting that we sort of live in this like generation of the internet, and we release content on the internet. And for a lot of artists, they start off releasing online and then eventually like go into the real world and perform these songs. For you, how is the transition into the real world? Like, has performing been something that you get better at each time, or was it something that you were, I guess, good at? Or how is it performing these songs in general?
Yeah, I actually kind of did the other way around, where I was performing more than releasing music online. So I definitely sucked at performing when I first started out, and was just like really bad in front of an audience, and like never looked at anyone. Honestly, I still have my eyes closed like the majority of the time when I perform, trying to get better at that. But I definitely, that's kind of been one of my big focuses after graduating, was performing more and just creating a local fan base here in San Francisco, and just playing at, you know, kind of the bigger venues of San Francisco and growing that foundation for myself. So I was kind of more focused on that, and I was hoping that, you know, by growing my local fan base and by growing like real people who are listening to your music, hopefully that would translate on over to the streaming and people who are listening to my music. It just makes me happier when I know that it's like real people who are listening to my music and people who are listening to it over and over again, adding it to their playlists and whatnot. So that's kind of the angle that I've taken.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of San Francisco, me being from Toronto, can you talk to me about what it's like living in San Francisco and what the music culture is there and how you navigate by, like you said, like performing at specific venues to keep growing? How is San Francisco as a musician?
Yeah, I've lived here all my life except for when I was in school for 4 years. So I love it. It's my home. I honestly am like, I don't think there's anywhere better than San Francisco. Music-wise, I've definitely been, you know, exploring it for the past 2 years. I wasn't really in it when I was in high school just because, you know, music for me was just still a hobby and something that I was doing for fun. So I wasn't really going out and playing at big local venues. I was mostly playing at like wine bars and small places like that. But after I graduated, I was like, okay, I guess I need to shift into a higher gear. So one group of or not a group, I guess they're called Noise Pop, and they basically book all of the bigger venues in San Francisco, and they do like 2 festivals a year, and they're kind of like what generates a lot of the local music here in San Francisco and the local artists.
Yeah.
And so I got linked up with them through a friend of mine right after I graduated, and through them, you know, I've had access to playing some of the coolest venues in San Francisco and just like meeting other people and meeting other artists. And I think that's really important to find, you know, the people who are generating the music scene in the city that you're living in, because then they're going to introduce you to other people, and that's kind of how you're going to build your network. So that's kind of what I've been doing to meet other people and meet other musicians. It's been very helpful and very important to have that.
Yeah, for sure. And going back to the French roots, I know you've released records where you're also singing in French. Can you talk to me as an artist what it's like meshing those two worlds together as an artist? I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. So I just started writing in French last year. For the longest time, I had kind of rejected the French language just because I grew up with it, and that's kind of what I did for most of my life. So when I went to college, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be like 100% American. Yeah. I'm like not gonna speak French that much. But it's kind of after I graduated and when I moved back home that I realized how important it is to have that other side of myself, and honestly, like how I could use it in my music and how it'll bring it to another level. So I kind of just started playing around with it, like adding little bits of words and sentences in my music to kind of make it sound cool and mysterious with the French. And I'm just now starting to write full songs in 100% French, and it's definitely a little harder, and a little bit harder just because, you know, a lot of my fan base here in San Francisco is they only speak English, so sometimes I fear that playing only French, people won't, because they don't know what I'm saying, they won't necessarily relate to it. So I think it's good to do half and half or just have like little bits of it. But I definitely am trying to grow my French fan base. But yeah, it's been interesting. It's been fun. And I realized that, you know, because I am bilingual, my brain thinks in both English and French. So it's kind of this whole other dictionary now that I have to pull from for my songs, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah.
And it's fun to to write in two languages and to mix the two. It's been really fun.
Now, I've gotten lucky with a few artists where I've interviewed them while they've been crafting their debut album or they're about to release one, because I always feel like it's like a special moment for an artist to release their first record. I know you've released a few singles for the album. Can you talk to me about the singles that you've released so far, and for you personally, what it's going to be like to release a debut album?
Yeah. So I've put out three singles now to date. The first one was Crystal Flores. I released that back in October. And that's the first bilingual song that I put out. So I was very, very excited to put that one out. And I had a music video along with that one that was completely DIY, made here in the Bay Area. And that was like, I don't think I'd never released like a full music video before. So that was also pretty exciting and just really great that, I did it all on my own with friends and family. And that one got honestly pretty good feedback. I was a little worried how people would react to it because it was very different from the EP that I had previously put out. But it was a little bit more upbeat. It's got like the bossa nova feel to it and the two languages. So I was pretty stoked about that one. And then my second single that I put out is called Tèlèphone. And that's, I think, one of my favorite songs off the album. And yeah, that one has been getting really good feedback as well. Honestly, you can only hope for the best.
Yeah.
When you're putting out new music, I'm always pretty excited about it. And then after, it's kind of up to the public how they feel. But if I'm excited, then I think that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks ago now, or like 2.5 weeks ago, I put out my third single called Don't Eat. And that one I was definitely a little nervous because it was very different from the first two singles that I put out. It was kind of more of my like folky, dark genre, guitar-based, a little slower. This one was all in English. A little bit more of my like sad, dark lyrics as well, which is honestly what I prefer to write. And it came out with a gorgeous music video that I did with this woman, Polly Pierce. We filmed it last year, and it was one of the most amazing music video experiences I've ever had, and we created something absolutely gorgeous, and I'm very, very excited that it's finally out, and it's been getting really good feedback, and people seem to be really liking it, so I'm really, really glad it's out in the world. And that song is also very special to me just because of the meaning behind it and why I wrote it. So I'm glad it's out in the world. Yeah.
And going back with the idea of a debut album, do you look at it as an introduction to yourself, or how do you look at the debut album?
Yeah, it's definitely a new introduction to myself because it's so different from the first EP that I put out. I think it's a good variety between my like sad, dark things and then a little bit more upbeat stuff. Like I say a lot, I don't like to be put in a box, and I don't like to characterize my music as one single genre. I like to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think the selection of songs that I have in this project really shows that. It shows that I do more than one thing, but it's still me. So I'm excited to put it out. I unfortunately don't have a date for it yet. I think I might be putting out a couple more singles before I release the full thing. But it is finished, so it will be coming out hopefully this year.
And on that note too, I do think we're in this like really cool age where artists have more freedom with having like not really being able to explain what the music actually sounds like it's kind of like genreless. So I do feel like we're growing towards that part of the music industry where you can really release whichever you want. And additionally too, with the idea of you saying you've been nervous and like when you release, I think it's okay to be nervous. So that's another thing to take note as well. So on the note of releasing records and things like that, usually I would say to an artist, what's the rest of the year looking like for you, upcoming shows and things like that. But with the Corona, messing things up for everybody, how do you see the rest of the year looking for you? hopefully this thing turns out all right?
I really don't know. California is currently in a statewide lockdown.
Yeah.
So, you know, show-wise, tour-wise, even session-wise, like, it's just not possible at the moment. So right now I'm just focusing on the single that I just put out and trying to milk that as much as I can and just get it into as many ears as I can. Just trying to sell my merch, and focus on maybe a fourth single and kind of figure out what I want to do around that and what I can do around that, you know, being at home and not really being able to go out or do much. So I'm definitely, you know, discovering the media and kind of learning how I can use it to my advantage. I definitely don't really like social media that much and have a hard time with it and have a hard time putting myself out there.
Yeah.
But I think in these coming weeks, I'm going to have to, and I'm going to have to learn, you know, how to use it to my advantage and try to connect with people that way. So that'll be interesting. But I definitely hope that the album will be out before the end of the year. I have a good feeling about it.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, definitely very, very uncertain.
On a final note, which would be a really cool, fun note to end on, from the time you entered school and you went to music, and from this time now and you are in your career, what's something that if you wish you can go back and that you can tell yourself, or something that you learned throughout this entire process so far?
To not overthink my music too much and not doubt myself so much. I think that's something that gets in my way a lot. I think something that gets in the way of a lot of creatives, because it is a very independent thing that we do and a very lonely thing that we do, because, you know, for me in any case, I'm a songwriter first and foremost, so I like to write on my own and like isolate myself when I'm writing. And by doing that, it's very easy to get trapped in your own mind and overthink a lot of things. So I think, yeah, definitely don't overthink and trust your brain and trust your gut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's been an absolute pleasure to have a conversation with you. Yeah. Thank you for coming on to Studio One. And just as a final note, I do agree with you with like social media and not wanting to release like things and being private. I've talked to so many artists where I feel like we live in this world where we have to like put out content and we have to be so social, but it's okay to like be comfortable not doing that. So I know given the situation, you probably feel like you have to, but it's okay afterwards to go back to like that normal.
Yeah, I was actually just texting with my best friend this morning and just asking her, you know, how she's been writing music, how she's been doing with all the social media things and stuff. And she was like, honestly, you just need to not put too much pressure on yourself. You just need to stay healthy and stay sane right now. I think that's the smartest thing to do. And if you feel creative and if anything comes to you, then great. But if not, it's also fine. So I'm trying to remember that and not put too much pressure on myself to like constantly be on social media. It's hard, but definitely got to keep my brain healthy first and foremost.
For sure. Again, thank you so much. Fan of your music. Can't wait till you finally come to Toronto for a show, and I'll definitely catch it.
Well, I should be there. So I was supposed to go to Canadian Music Week.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, but I didn't know if I wanted to because it's still, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's been postponed to September.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'll be there in September and get to meet in person.
For sure. Again.
Yeah.
Stay healthy, stay sane.
Yeah, same to you.
Thanks again. Bye.
Bye.
Studio